Good morning, this is Katie from Back Paddock. This is just going to be a really quick sort of 5-minute video on how to get started with the Advisor or Manager product. So we're going to look up how to create a client file and just populate it with some basic data to get you started. So I've got a client file open here at the moment. It's called 2019 Demo. We can see I've got 2 farms, Home Farm and Over Road, and several paddocks with areas listed to the right here. So clicking in the navigation pane, I can click between the different paddocks and then I can see the inputs associated with that paddock in this year. So in the road paddock, for example, I've got sorghum grain, it's got a couple of fertilizers, it's got a couple of sprays associated with it, it's got some operations that are occurring in the paddock, and we've got some production data. So those are the 5 primary inputs for a paddock. We've got sowing here, soil health, so fertilizers, chemical sprays, operations, and production. And from those 5 inputs, we create sort of basic reports. We can, of course, expand on that, adding rainfall and a few other things, but those are the 5 basic inputs for you to create a basic gross margin and final report. So we can navigate through the years by clicking on these 2 arrows here in the management zone, or the same 2 arrows at the top there. So I can look back in this windmill paddock last year and see that it was barley feed. This year it's in wheat. Now we're going to close out of this in a moment and just get started with the basic file, but I'll show you quickly as well. So the farm tab is where the basic setup was done for this file. So we can see these are my paddock names and their areas. We can also tell from these little maps icons here that 3 of my paddocks have maps, which we can see in the mapping tab. So in the mapping tab, we can do things like creating crop layers or mapping anything that you've entered in the system. So that might be mapping where a particular fertilizer is being spread in the year, where you've sprayed a particular chemical. Whatever it is that you've entered, you'll be able to map that. So I'm going to close out of this file now and we're going to create a new one, and then I'll show you some of the help guides on our website that would have helped you with this process as well. So I'm going to file, close to get out of this, and I'm going to click on new. So this is now what you're going to do to get started with your product. You're going to click on new in the top left corner. You're going to make sure that you're an advisor and client, so documents, Back Paddock Company, advisor and clients, that location there, and you're going to type a file name in here. So I'll just call this file name. Now generally this name might be the trading name. This is not a matter of just changing this one easily. So do give some thought to your file name and then save. So if you're an agronomist with multiple files, this might be the trading name or it might be the client's name, whichever you prefer. If you're a manager, this might just be your farm name. So we've got our basic file set up here now. I'm going to go to Farm tab, and this is where I'm going to add in my farms and my paddocks. So I'm going to click Edit Farms first and set up my paddocks. It's given me Home Farm as a default. I'm going to change that to Farm 1, and then I'm going to add a new record for Farm 2. Now your icon might just look like a plus sign. I am using an older version, so yours might just look like a plus sign to add. Now you can see at this point that I've got a little edit pencil off to the left. Whenever you see that edit pencil, you just want to click off the cell that you're in to save that final change. Beautiful. And then I'm going to close out of that pop-up. And now at the top here, I've got Farm 1 and Farm 2 to choose from. So I'm going to stick with Farm 1 and I'm going to add in some paddocks. So I'm going to click on Add New. Once again, yours will probably just be a plus sign. And it's given me Paddock 1. Now I'm in quick entry mode here, so what I can do is I can type in the first name of the paddock, so I'll just call this one Wood, hit enter on my keyboard and type the area, so my wood paddock is going to be 120 hectares, enter on the keyboard again and it gives me a new line, so I'll just call this one Timber, enter, area, enter, fern, enter, area, enter, and we'll just go with one more, tree, enter, area. So on this last one, I've got my edit pencil again. I'm just going to click off that final cell. It becomes a black triangle. That's been saved. Now I can do the same thing to my Farm 2. Add new to get my first one. Now these ones I'll go with some colours, so we'll go with pink, area, enter, purple, enter, area, enter, green, enter, area, enter, and white, enter, area, and then click off the last cell. Okay, so if we go back to the Home tab now, we can see that we're starting to get our structure that we saw in that demonstration file. So now you could start to think about adding rotations if that's what's most important to you. You could import maps if you've got them from a shapefile, or you can create them following one of the guides on our help desk that I will show you. Or like I said, you can enter in rotation. So you've got a few options from this point. If you wanted to enter rotations, it's just a matter of, once again, referring to the sewing section, clicking the crop type drop down, and then selecting an appropriate crop type for you. So I might have avocados. I'll go with Hass. Kilos a hectare. I've got no idea what the sowing rate is for avocados, but I'll throw something in there. So you can throw in as much or as little information as you like. If there's nothing suitable for you in the drop down, that will be a matter of adjusting the master database, which I will open up and show you very briefly, but I'll also refer you to a guide. So all of these are just drop downs. It's just a matter of adding a new line. Yours once again will look like a plus sign. Searching for what you want, and it will enter some default information for you. So the default information is coming from the master database, so we'll check that out in a moment. Okay, now once you've got your primary input sorted, it might be a matter of having a look at the gross margins, which aren't going to make too much sense yet because I have very little data in here. So we can see we've got some fertilizer that we've added, and so far it's looking pretty good. We're going to get a lot for not much input. That's obviously going to change. You could also look at doing some reports. So perhaps if we go to reports, perhaps a general report if you just want to see your standard sort of information, so your standard inputs, outputs, gross margin. That would come from a general report, and that's a single click report. We just click, wait up to 30 seconds depending on how much data you've got, and it will generate a report for you that you can export as a PDF. So I'll give that a few seconds. Excellent, so we can see that that's come up here now. I can click through the pages with these top arrows at the top. I've got a rotation summary, area summary, and then some ferts, seeds, chems, and then it'll move through to the paddocks and gross margin summary. So that's our general report type. The next thing that you could do is look at importing some maps, like I said, and then do some mapping in the mapping tab. We'll jump back to home though. I'm going to quickly show you this master database. So this one will come up pretty early, and your best bet is to customize this reasonably early. So we give you a default that has a lot of data in it. It is part of the product that you get to customize this to suit your requirements. So we can see here we've got crops. I've got narrowleaf monocot, broadleaf dicot, miscellaneous wood, timber, etc. So if I click on narrowleaf monocot, I've got a lot of options in here. Anything that's ticked I don't see, anything that's unticked I do see. So I can only see barley feed, cane, first ratoon and fodder in here at the moment. But if I also wanted to see malt barley, I could untick malt barley, and then I would see that as available as a drop down in my crop section. To see varieties, I could then expand that on the left, and I'll click on that barley malt on the left, and I can see that I've got a lot of different varieties available. So you can go through, it's a matter of unticking things you do want to see and ticking things you don't want to see. So if I, for example, only want to see one or two of these varieties, I don't want to sort through a long list, I might exclude all items in table, yes, and then just say I want to see Commander and I want to see Piccolo. And then within my barley malt crop type, I'll only see those two in my drop down. So it can save you a lot of time in season and when you're doing data entry. So crops, fertilizers are sorted by vendor. So you tick or untick the vendors you want to see first, and then expand on the left, click on them on the left to see their products. If something's not in here at all, you can just click on add new record, and that'll add a new record to whatever you've got open in this right pane here. Chemicals are sorted by group. So if I look at herbicide, for example, that's a good one. I can see that I've got lots of things included and excluded. I can sort through that as required, exclude all items in table, and untick the things you do need. So it's just a matter of working through that reasonably early on in the process to really sort of streamline your data entry processes, and that will save you a lot of time. You can also see at this point the default information that would be entered. So for chemicals, price per unit and default rate might be entered if you have those set up. For fertilizers, if I expand out, click on Incitec for example, same thing, price per tonne, default rate, and then also the breakdown of the nutrients here. So just make sure that they are updated to match your current local situation. And then crops, default information is the production data. So for barley feed, for example, it's saying 130, 155 or 180 for price per tonne for the grain product. And it's expecting 2.5 to 3 tonnes per hectare. So you can adjust those as well. So change that to suit your requirement early on, and then these drop-down lists become a lot more relevant for you instead of sorting through. Well, I've got some horticultural stuff in there at the moment, which may or may not be applicable to you. So that's about all I wanted to cover in this quick session today, but I'll just show you briefly on our help desk. So I'm on backpaddock.com.au, help desk, advisor manager, how-to guides. What we've covered is in this sort of create basic file, create paddock maps, create client file and sync. We're working through this process here. The mapping, if you don't have a starting point for your mapping, you can create paddock maps in Google Earth and import them by following this guide here. If you need more information on the master database, it's this guide here. So this is where all of those drop downs were customized. And I mean, this first sort of module section here just really breaks down the processes that I've described very briefly. So have a read through these, refer back to this video as you need to, and of course you're always available to contact our support team. You can reach us on this phone number at the top, 32202959, or you can book a demonstration or training session at a time that suits you. And what we do then is we just call you at that appropriate time and sit down for sort of an hour-long online training session with you. And that's very much customized to suit your requirements. So we will cover whatever you need to know in that first session, and you're welcome to have as many follow-up sessions as you like. So thank you for watching, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you.